In chapter 1290, Cameron patiently handles Callum's request for flowers while her mother, Mrs. Newman, walks into the flower shop. Mrs. Newman smiles amiably as she attempts to make eye contact with Callum, despite her initial difficulty recognizing his features. Mrs. Newman is intrigued when Callum identifies himself as Callum York, one of the illustrious York family's heirs. She had anticipated that her daughter Carrie would have the opportunity to marry into a wealthy and prestigious family like the Yorks. Mrs. Newman, who is delighted to see a York family member, expresses surprise at not knowing of Callum's engagement and inquires about the lucky girl. Although they are not yet engaged, Callum teases her by saying they already think of themselves as husband and wife, while keeping the appearance that they are. Knowing that Mrs. Newman might take offense, he playfully invites her to their upcoming engagement party. Despite her distaste for Cameron, despite the fact that Cameron is her daughter, Mrs. Newman accepts the invitation with a fake grin in the hopes of marrying off her younger daughter Carrie to a suitable member of the York family. It is clear that Mrs. Newman and Cameron have a tense relationship. Mrs. Newman has never shown Cameron affection and has occasionally even harbored animosity for her. However, she decided to let Cameron live after her husband insisted that she should be spared from death because of her blindness, and since she was the only child of her late ex-husband. In light of Callum and Cameron's bond, Mrs. Newman conceals her genuine sentiments while acting cordial and secretly hopes for a favorable union for her daughter. Callum maintains a friendly demeanor and his deceitful role despite the underlying strain. Despite understanding that asking Mrs. Newman to their upcoming engagement party will put Mrs. Newman's affections toward Cameron to the test and maybe lead to more tension, he is adamant on carrying out his ruse. He sees this as a chance to quietly make his point and demonstrate to Mrs. Newman that Cameron has a particular place in his heart. The chapter emphasizes the complicated relationships within the Newman family, with Carrie's legal issues adding additional stress. The rivalry between the families has grown due to Serenity's refusal to pardon Carrie for her deeds, which were planned by Mrs. Newman. Mrs. Newman, however, is adamant about wedlocking Carrie into the York family since she views it as a possible way out of their current problems.